I remember one of the things that in the Passion, everybody just kind of blew by real quick, was that Jesus claimed when he was on trial there in front of the Jewish leaders, "Are you the Christ," you're the Messiah, "the Son of the Blessed One," that's the Son of God, and he says, "I am," and then you'll see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of glory, great power, and so on. You did your doctoral dissertation in Germany on that Son of Man. People didn't catch the impact of what you have, and all the gospel writers talk about that little section. The fact is he was the Son of Man. What does that mean, and why was that a mind-blowing phrase that is recorded in our earliest documents?
Well, in fact, it's the very reason Jesus was crucified. His answer to that question put him on the cross. And the reason it was a mind-blowing claim was because in the background of Judaism, there's only one God. No one shares God's glory. They could conceivably contemplate a religious grade of some type, possibly sharing glory under certain circumstances, very special circumstances, but it certainly wouldn't be an independent Galilean teacher roaming the fields in the first century with no background to have that kind of a connection. So when the high priest asks, "Are you the Son of God?" by which I think he's actually asking you, "Are the Messiah?" because he wants to prove to Pilate that he's claiming to be a king that Rome didn't have anything for. Jesus actually gives him more than he bargains for. He says in Mark, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power, coming on the clouds of heaven." Two Old Testament passages, Psalm 110:1, Daniel 7. Psalm 110:1 is the idea of this figure being seated at the right hand of the Father. And the coming on the clouds is a statement out of Daniel 7. That's one like the Son of Man coming to the Ancient of Days. Now that's all gibberish until I explain it to you. So let me go through those one at a time. We'll start with Daniel 7 first. When you ride on the clouds in the Old Testament, you're either God or the gods in the Old Testament.
And the guys he was talking to knew this by heart.
They knew this by heart. They clicked in immediately with what he was saying. So when he says, "I'm coming on the clouds," he says, "I have divine authority. I'm like a figure, the Son of Man. I'm actually a judge." In other words, let me put it to you this way. I may be on defense in the defendant in this trial, but one day, in the day that really counts, I'm going to be your judge. They didn't want to hear that. The second thing that's important here is the idea of the right hand. And the right hand of God is important because Jesus was making it clear by his remark about riding the clouds that what he was envisioning is somehow a vindication that took him to heaven, and then from heaven he's able to ride the clouds. Because right now he's on earth, he's on terra firma. So I'm going to be at the right hand of the Father. They immediately understood that what he was claiming is God was going to vindicate him in such a way that Jesus is going to end up being parked at the side of God. No one shares God's glory. At least you don't. We know that because in their minds they didn't think he was divine and had any kind of rights like that. And only someone who could share divine glory could park in God's presence. So Jesus answered the question, not only am I the Messiah, but I'm going to park in heaven by the side of God, and I'm going to ride the clouds and one day be your judge. It's even worse than it sounds in some ways, because we know that in the temple that was in Jerusalem, in the most holy place, a human being could only go in once a year to offer a sacrifice. He was in and out. In fact, one of the Jewish traditions says the high priest had a rope tied around him so they could pull him out in case something happened, so no one else go in. That's sacred space. Jesus is saying it's worse than saying, I'm going to go into the middle of the temple, the Holy of Holies, and I'm going to live there. We know that if someone had made that kind of a claim or performed that type of an action, they would have been totally offended. And that's exactly how the Jewish leaders heard it, because they didn't buy the premise. And the premise that Jesus was making is, I have the right to be there because of who I am.